So I'd like to welcome you to today's Inspiration Wednesday session, and today's topic is going to focus on utilizing PowerPoint for storyboarding with use within Lectora Online. Now, for those of you that this might be your first Inspiration Wednesday session that you're joining us for, welcome. All of these sessions are recorded, and in just a day or two, they will be available on our website. So at the very end of the session, I'll give you a little bit more of a heads up on where you can access those from the website. But for those of you who have sat in on many Inspiration Wednesdays, welcome back. We had an opportunity to meet a lot of you at the user conference 2 weeks ago in Chicago, and we got a lot of great feedback from you. So we're really glad that you're enjoying these Inspiration Wednesday sessions. So let's get started with today's topic. The development of any successful e-learning requires the collaboration of many key players and most of the times many different applications. With the easy-to-use PowerPoint integrator that's found within Lectora Online, you can now create, review, and deliver your course content using one product. So today's session, we're really going to have you take a better look at your current process and see how you might change that for use with Lectora Online. So in this session, you're going to learn the process for creating storyboards in PowerPoint and then integrating them into Lectora Online for both review and then development. You'll also learn how to set your import preferences and how those will affect the end result of your course. So we're going to ask you to take a look at your current process today, and we're going to give you some things to think about, how you might want to modify or change your current process as far as the storyboarding part goes. So if we first think about our current process, we know when we talk about storyboards, a storyboard is just a comprehensive design document, and it's a place where you're going to work out your design details of the course. So more or less, this is the blueprint of your entire course development. So most likely, your current process involves painstaking effort to collaborate with subject matter experts, instructional designers, and maybe even your clients. So maybe as revisions are made to Word documents of your text, PDFs maybe containing course graphics, all of these different parties need to be made aware of these revisions. So currently you're updating a Word document and you've got to distribute to the rest of the team. And you're trying to keep track and manage all these different files. So as you can imagine, just managing and organizing all of your storyboard files can be quite the challenge. So the question we're going to ask ourselves today is, what is the solution? And for us, the solution is going to be Lectora Online. We can take advantage of Lectora Online's collaboration tools, so now that starting with that storyboard process, we can move right into that development phase using one simple application. Now, when we talk about storyboarding, now this goes for content that you're creating with any type of authoring tool. There truly is no right or wrong way to storyboard. If you want to storyboard in a Word document, you can do that. If you want to storyboard by sketching, each page is your own sketch, you can certainly do that. We're going to recommend using PowerPoint to storyboard for a number of different reasons. First and foremost, very easily, you can use PowerPoint to create a visual layout of each page. So you can really clearly define what you want each page to look like. In PowerPoint, there's an area at the bottom of each slide that will allow you to provide notes. Here we take advantage of this and we provide notes or instructions for maybe our developers. Notes here might describe how the page should function for the learner, how content should be presented to the learner, etc. A big point that we listed here is that most people have PowerPoint. The biggest thing about starting this storyboard phase is getting all parties involved immediately in on the process. So whether you're talking about your client, your subject matter expert, your instructional designer, everyone has PowerPoint, everyone's familiar with PowerPoint, so it creates a really great starting off point because time is money and you want to start this process and get everyone involved as soon as possible. Another benefit for using PowerPoint, and for those of you certainly using some of the newer versions of PowerPoint, probably familiar with all of the smart art, the various tables, and the different image techniques you can apply. So it really enhances your content, and it's a free resource that you can take advantage of. So certainly for those of you not always working with those graphic designers, that's a nice option as well. And the biggest reason for us wanting to use PowerPoint, especially when we're working with Lectora Online, is that there's an easy import function. So we can take an existing PowerPoint, all of the slides, and we can import that directly into Lectora Online. It creates a title for us, and now each slide within that PowerPoint presentation becomes a page in my new title. So we're starting the storyboard phase out with PowerPoint, and we're going to take that phase directly into Lectora Online. So let's talk a little bit about that import, or getting that into Lectora Online as soon as possible. Throughout this presentation, again, we're asking you to change the way you currently think. Change your current process. Lectora Online is going to provide you with the perfect platform for true collaboration. So again, you want to involve clients, subject matter experts from the get-go. You want them in from the beginning. So it's important to get these PowerPoints, these storyboards, into Lectora Online as soon as possible. And a couple tips for that is when you're creating that initial storyboard, draft it loosely in PowerPoint. And these PowerPoints should not be too detailed at the very beginning. So importing a lot of content in the beginning of the process is just going to delay that overall review process. So again, your PowerPoint, using PowerPoint is your starting point. It brings everyone together because everyone's familiar with that tool. And then once you get it into Lectora Online, you can continue out that design phase. Now, if you take a look at the center of my screen here, I have a note that says, upon import, the storyboard PowerPoint should contain. Now, these are more or less just some guidelines or some suggestions for you because, again, there's no right or wrong way for you to storyboard. So I'm going to suggest a couple things that you might want to include within that initial storyboard PowerPoint. First and foremost is your sequence of pages. We know that when we import a PowerPoint into Lectora Online, each slide becomes a page in your title. So if you design out your initial storyboard in the sequence you want for your course, that automatically transfers in upon import. Your storyboard PowerPoint should include placeholders so that you're understanding where things are going from each page. So whether you just have a rectangle that's representing a flash animation or a video, etc., later in that development process, you can actually pull in those specific media files. It's a good idea to include a list of consistent design elements in your PowerPoint storyboards. So what we mean here is you want to clearly identify throughout your course what you want buttons to look like, what you want tables to look like, etc. So this just creates a nice consistency for that design all the way throughout your title. You can include the GUI, graphic user interface, and navigation, so you're establishing your look and feel from the get-go. And then, of course, any relevant developer notes. So how you want pages to function, certain notes that you think it's important for the developer to have, you can include all of that in your initial PowerPoint. Now, once this content is imported into Lectora Online, again, your storyboard phase is still continuing, and this is now where your instructional designers can add more detail. They can design out specific activities, videos, animations, demonstrations, etc. once it's inside the Lectora Online application. Once it's in Lectora Online, which you'll see in just a few minutes, this is going to now make it much easier for your subject matter experts and your clients to start reviewing and leaving feedback. So again, you're setting up this collaboration from the very beginning. You're involving all party members so that they can provide feedback throughout the entire process. Now let's talk about this import process. When you work with Lectora Online, we make it very easy for you to import existing PowerPoint presentations into Lectora. So if you take a look here at how I've broken down this process, we'll see it in the application in just a moment. But if we start over here, When you log into Lectora Online and you're working within that dashboard area, the left-hand side of your screen, you see this little tasks panel. So from here, you'll select Import PowerPoint. When the Import PowerPoint window launches, you have two different folder destinations that you can choose. If you choose to import a PowerPoint into the My Titles folder, that means that until you share that project, it's only going to be accessible by you. You can also choose to import that directly into that Shared Titles folder. Notice that you'll browse for the specific PowerPoint file. Doesn't matter how many slides are in that PowerPoint presentation, you can import that in here. You can certainly rename that title and then select Import. Now, a couple of the import preferences that I want to go over here for you. First and foremost, you can determine the title size. This is now in Lectora Online, what is the size of the title you want to create? And you'll notice there's a drop-down option, but you choose a number of different options here. Transitions. We know that in PowerPoint, you can apply transitions from slide to slide. If you so chose, you could import those transitions in here. You'll notice I have a little tip down here at the bottom, and I think what you're going to find is best practice, leave out those PowerPoint transitions, and essentially at this point, your storyboard should have been drafted pretty loosely, so it probably doesn't include that type of detail. But if you're importing content, maybe pre-existing content that did have those transitions, best practice would be just to leave those transitions out. You can always apply those later in Lectora, page to page, if you wanted to. You also have the ability to determine which format you want for all of your graphics contained in that title. So remember, upon import, any of the images that you have in your PowerPoint presentation automatically transfer into Lectora Online as graphics. And here I can choose JPEG, I can choose PNG, and I can determine and establish that format directly here on the import process. Once you go through this process, you'll select OK. It imports that PowerPoint into Lectora Online, and then you'll notice that for every slide within that presentation, it automatically creates a page within your title. So let's go ahead and show you how this process works in Lectora. First thing I want to do is just pull up my PowerPoint presentation to show you what my storyboard looks like from the get-go. So if you notice, I've got 12 slides here, so maybe one chapter or one lesson of an overall course I've created the storyboard for. And you'll notice that I kept the design pretty loose. I didn't get too detailed right away because, again, I can continue that designing process once it's in Lectora Online. You'll notice throughout the presentation, I've taken advantage of this notes section here at the bottom. And you can see on this page, just creating some specific notes for the developer. So on this page, create a rollover effect in Lectora for each of the 4 graphics so that the corresponding information text can be shown and hidden. So essentially, once this is developed out in Lectora, we'll have a rollover here so that as my user's mouse hovers over each of these 4 graphics, I will show and hide the 4 sets of text that you see displayed on the right-hand side. So you can see this is how I chose to storyboard out that particular page. So I've kept the design pretty loose. So I have this PowerPoint presentation ready to go. Let me go ahead and open up Lectora Online. First thing I'm going to do is log in with my specific user ID and password. And we're not going to necessarily go through an entire Lectora Online demonstration. It's not necessarily the purpose of today's Inspiration Wednesday session, but certainly if you haven't worked with Lectora Online and you're interested, we have a number of resources available on our website that you can check out. All right, so once I open Lectora Online, I log in, I'm sitting here at my dashboard area where I can do a number of different things. And one of those being, if I take a look on the left-hand side, I can select this Import PowerPoint option. So when I select Import PowerPoint, it's going to present me with a separate window. Notice I can determine which folder I want to import that PowerPoint to. And I'll set it up here at my Titles folder at first. So what that means is I'm going to be the only one that has access to this presentation. I'm going to change that a little bit later, but for right now, I'll set it up in here. So I'm simply going to browse for my PowerPoint presentation. And I've got one here in my Documents folder. If I wanted to modify the title name, I certainly could modify that here as well. I'll go ahead and leave that as is and choose Import. My import preferences, I'm going to leave the default option 720 by 540, but notice you have some other options that you can utilize here and even choosing a custom size if you wanted to. Remember, this is going to be the size of your title. So however you want your finished product, your finished course, whatever size you want that to be, that's what you're going to list here. Transitions, I'm going to choose to not bring in any of my PowerPoint transitions. And for my images, I'm going to go ahead and leave that as PNG format. So you've got 3 image formats. You can have a GIF, a JPEG, or a PNG. Once I select OK, the import process is going to take place. And once this finishes importing, you'll notice that it's going to launch directly in our Lectora Online publisher. And we'll take a look at that in just a second. So take a look at what we've done. You'll notice over on the left-hand side in our Title Explorer, for every slide that was in that PowerPoint presentation, it's come in as a page now within our Lectora Online title. All the objects contained in that PowerPoint presentation, graphics, text blocks, etc., these are now objects that we can work with within Lectora. So if we needed to modify these, change their position, we can very easily do that. Now, when you look over on the left-hand side, you'll notice that several of the pages here from my presentation the page names are both bold and italicized. This indicates that we had a note on that page, on that slide rather, in the PowerPoint presentation. So if you take a look, notes from any PowerPoint presentation automatically transfer into Lectora, and they're created in Lectora Notes. So you can see I have this little note icon on the page, and if I double click to open it, you can see this is that same note that I showed you just a moment ago, where here's a note that I've provided for my developer. Create a rollover effect in Lectora for each of the 4 graphics so that the corresponding information text can be shown and hidden based on the learner's mouse movements. Okay, so all of these notes are included within your Lectora title now. I can rename pages, so I certainly don't need to leave the generic page 1, slide 1, slide 2, etc. I can now start to rename all of these pages accordingly. Now, before I share this project with anyone else, and we're certainly going to address that whole team dynamic in just a second, but one of the things you can do, I mentioned it's a good benefit to maybe include some type of course outline within your initial storyboard. Your course outline can very easily and very quickly help you rename pages, help you establish chapters or sections throughout your course. So one of the first things you might consider doing when you import a PowerPoint, obviously every slide now just becomes a page and it's not grouped into any specific chapter levels or section levels. But working now in Lectora Online, we know that we can very easily insert chapters, sections, or pages, and we can quickly regroup some of this content. So one of the first things you might want to do upon importing that initial storyboard is you might want to organize your content, break it down into different organizational units like chapters and sections. This is going to make it much easier for you when you start delegating out those design tasks. And again, when we start introducing that team dynamic, which we're going to get to next, that's when that can become very helpful, where you can assign one chapter to one designer, another chapter to another designer, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this title for just a moment. We can save those changes. And I'll close out of this title so I'm back here in my dashboard. And let's go back to our presentation. So we've got our PowerPoint imported in. Now that our PowerPoint content is available in Lectora Online, now we need to start thinking about working as a team. And again, this is where you want to start changing the way you're currently thinking or you're currently approaching your process. So what we can do is now that this content has been imported in, we can establish a team of instructional designers, subject matter experts, and even clients to continue this process. We're still creating our storyboard. The storyboard needs more detail. It needs more designers to work on it. Now we've uploaded it into Lectora Online, and now it's in a place where we can do true collaboration. We can set up a number of different team members to have access to the content. So again, we ask you, change the way you think. Instead of assigning one instructional designer to one project, set your organization up so that multiple instructional designers can work on several projects. This ensures that there's always continuous work on any given project. So if one instructional designer becomes unavailable, they get pulled off for another project, for example, you have a number of designers that have access to the content and that can still keep working. So one of the biggest benefits of Lectora Online is that it's a really great tool for mass production. So you're going to save a lot of time if we can keep the project constantly in motion. So when we think about working as a team, the next thing we need to do as far as our storyboard process goes is we need to make sure that we provide access to these designers, subject matter experts, and clients. So we want to make sure that we share our title. We can do this very easily in Lectora Online by going to our Manage Titles option. Notice that in the screenshot you see below, I chose to share this project with one client, one subject matter expert, and 2 instructional designers. Once these team members are associated with the project, they can log in on their own to access the content. The instructional designers can continue the design phase and that storyboarding phase, while your subject matter experts and your clients can continuously provide feedback and comments. When you start providing access immediately using Lectora Online, it's going to allow for quicker production and it's going to save you time and money. If you look at the screenshot on the bottom here, you can see that I'm logged in as one of the instructional designers on the project, and I can simultaneously design different portions of this course, provide my own feedback, etc. So let's go back into Lectora Online, and we're going to show you how we can add users to our organization and then set up our teams for specific projects. All right, so back here in my dashboard area, first thing you'll notice is I have several users already set up here within my organization. I've got a client, I've got a subject matter expert, and I've got a couple instructional designers. Let's assume that I want to add one more instructional designer to my organization. So I'm going to come down here to my Manage Users, and I'll quickly just add one more user to my organization just so you can see how easy that process is. Now, if I'm adding an instructional designer, I want them to be able to modify the content, so I'll set them up as a user. Their user ID, I'll keep it pretty basic for our example here. I'll provide a description and then a valid email address. All right, so I'll add that third instructional designer to our organization. Now, you can see here I've got several team members already established, and that's all you need to do. You just go through that simple add process. So here's the current members in my organization. At this point, I'm going to close out of this Manage Users window. Now's where I want to share that project, that storyboard I just imported in. I want to make sure the other team members have access to it. So if I come over here to my Manage Titles option, you'll notice here's my storyboard that I just imported in, and currently it's sitting within the My Titles folder, so no one else in my organization has access to it. So if I highlight that project here and select Share, notice on the right-hand side, I can choose of any of the available users within my organization, I can add them and create my own unique team. So here, I'm going to go ahead and add 3 instructional designers to my team. I'm going to add a client so they can have access, and I'm going to add my subject matter expert. So anyone now currently listed here has access to that storyboard. The title can go in a shared status because now I'm going to share it with other team members, and I can determine that only these team members have access to the project. Once I select Save, those individuals that I've named here as team members will have access to that specific project when they log in to Lectora Online. And it takes just a second or so to share that title. Okay, now that the title has been shared, you can see that our storyboard now sits within that shared titles folder. Now that our content has been shared, we've established our team, now we can start talking about this idea of ongoing collaboration. This is the true benefit of Lectora Online. It's a web-based authoring tool, so it allows multiple users to access and modify the content simultaneously. This saves you so much time. Team members can provide feedback at any time in the form of a note. Modifications, however, if you're modifying the content itself, requires that the user check out a designated portion of the title. So if we think about it, I just created a team that has 3 instructional designers, and each one of those is responsible for designing out a particular portion of the project. 3 of them can work on it simultaneously, saving me time and money. But in order for them to modify content and continue designing page by page, for example, they have to go through this process that we refer to as checking out. So essentially, I don't want chapter 1 to be available to anyone else on the team while I'm modifying the content. I want to make sure that I'm the only one that can make changes to that particular portion of the course at that time. So if you take a look at my screenshots here, you have the ability to check out a chapter level, a page level, a section level, even an individual object. And when you check that out, you'll notice that around that object, you see a green rectangle. This indicates that you're the one that has the ability to modify that content. Anyone who logs in simultaneously from your team, they'll see the same object, but it'll be a red rectangle. So they'll know that another team member is currently working with that part of the project. Now, this whole idea of version control and checking out your changes works hand in hand with being able to track changes to your storyboard. When you're designing a storyboard, it can be so difficult to track changes and modifications that might be made by instructional designers or subject matter experts, clients, etc. With Lectora Online, all of that changes. With the ability to check out and then check in modifications made to a title, it allows us to easily identify and keep track of all of the different versions. And I'll show you this in the application in just a moment. But if you take a look how this process works, we just talked about on the previous page here, checking out specific areas of the project that you'd like to modify or perhaps design. When you're done designing or modifying that area, you'll have to check your changes back in. So you can take a look here. Let's say you check in changes to an entire chapter level. You're done designing, you finished everything you needed to in that chapter, so now you're going to check in those changes. Upon check-in, we provide you with this area to leave a detailed note. Well, what are the changes that you made here? What is the work that you just completed on this project? The more detailed comments that you leave here, the more specific, the easier it's going to be to identify different versions of your title a little bit later. The way you can set up your projects in Lectora Online allows you this great notification feature. as soon as, let's say if I'm instructional designer 1, as soon as I check changes in that I made to the project, everyone else that's on the team receives an email notification letting them know the status of that project. It says, team member, instructional designer 1, checked in a change to the title. And then it can show them the comments that I've included with that change. So whether you have all of your designers simultaneously working on the project or not, everyone is still in the loop. An automatic email gets sent to everyone when a change was made. So they can then log in and check out those changes firsthand. Now, aside from notifications that are automatically sent to your team members, the great thing about Lectora Online is that you have version control. For every change that is checked into the project, it creates a new version of that title. So you can see a screenshot here. We started at 0 when we first imported in the storyboard. Once the title was shared, it creates version 1, and then as changes are checked into the project, it creates multiple different versions. Version control is important here. You can restore a version back to a previous state, but the biggest advantage for Lectora Online is all of this is maintained within one application. You don't have to keep sending your team members updated or modified versions of your storyboard. Everything is now saved right here within this application. So let's bounce back to Lectora Online and show you how you can track in those changes, and more importantly, if you're a designer, how do you check out different areas of this project? If I've been assigned to design chapter 1, how do I check that out and continue that design phase? So let's go back to Lectora Online here. Now, where we just left off, we just shared this project with a couple different team members, 3 instructional designers, a subject matter expert, and a client. So I'm going to go ahead and log out here, and I'm going to log back in as a different user. So let me log in as instructional designer 1, since we just shared the project with that user. So now I'm an instructional designer, and I log into Lectora Online. And you'll notice that under my recent titles, I've got a couple different things I've been working on. I'm going to go ahead and select Open an Existing Title so I can launch the storyboard that was just shared with me. So I've got this shared title option. I'm going to go ahead and select Tri-Tab Lesson 1. Now you'll notice here's the same storyboard. It's been imported into Lectora. If I go, let's say on slide 2, if I go to make any changes here, this is the page where we're really designing out the consistent look and feel for different elements that might be included in my course. And one of the things I've noticed is that we didn't leave any design for tables. If I want a table within my course, what should it look like? So my first thought is, let me go ahead and insert just a shape here. You'll notice that I don't have the ability to make modifications yet to this project or this storyboard. The reason being is that this storyboard now is shared among several different team members. So I can't just come in here as one of those team members and start making changes as I please. This is where you need to check out and check in with that whole version control process. So assuming I want to work on slide 2, page 2, from the Title Explorer on the left, I'm going to right-click over that page icon, select Version Control, and check this page out. Notice immediately a green rectangle is available around this page icon, indicating that I now have the ability to modify this content. If you were another team member logged in at the same time working on this project, you would see a red rectangle around that specific page level. Okay, so that's kind of the different views there that I was talking about earlier. So, okay, so on slide 2, I'll just do a quick insert here just so you get the idea. Let me add a rectangle. And I'm just going to make a mock-up here of maybe what I would want a table to look like. And I'm not going to do the whole thing because you get the idea. Let me just go ahead and here's my mock-up of a table. I'll add a quick text block here. Okay. So let's assume now, whether I had a chapter checked out or just this page, I did a couple other things and, maybe I was done for the day or I was done with my piece of the storyboard. So at this point, we want to check our changes back in. This creates a separate version of this storyboard, allows for version control, and allows me to provide detailed comments of the work that I've just done. So again, over on the left, I'll go ahead and save my changes. Over on the left, I have my page 2 here, slide 2, I'm just going to right click once again, version control this time, I'll select check in. Now here's where you want to try to leave detailed comments. Be as specific as possible here. I can say, needed to include the design aspect for tables included within the course. Keep to the gray and green color scheme, etc. So you can see here that can be as detailed as you want it. All the changes you made, you can provide here in this comments field. Now, if your work wasn't done yet, if you still had more work to do on this page or in a chapter, you can keep this checked out, but submit your comment. So again, just a great way to keep that communication open between all those other team members. So for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and completely check this in. It's going to check in the changes. It's adding that revision to my storyboard. And you can see once it checks the change in, notice that that green rectangle goes away. Now I'm going to go ahead and close out of the storyboard at this point. And let me show you a little bit about that version, those different versions that are created as you develop your storyboard. So back from the dashboard here, if I go to this Manage Titles option, and if we select our storyboard, I can select this option on the left called History. Notice here, it's showing me all the different versions of that storyboard. This is when we first imported it into Lectora. This is when we shared that project or that storyboard with other team members. And now here is the change that I just checked into the storyboard. Needed to include the design aspect for tables, etc., etc. Within this window here, if needed, you could restore back to a previous version of the title. So if there were modifications or changes made to the design that you didn't want, that you wanted to revert back to, you can certainly do that. So again, here's the benefits of Lectora Online and working within this web-based authoring tool. All of these different versions are tracked right here within one application. Now, when we talk about reviewer functionality, this is a tremendous feature in Lectora Online. Within any organization, you can add an unlimited amount of reviewers to your organization free of charge. Now, anyone set up as a reviewer, these are people that can view your content, they can provide feedback, but that's it. They can't modify the content, they can't develop the content, etc. Reviewers don't need to have any knowledge of Lectora Online whatsoever. This is going to be perfect for subject matter experts, for clients, that you don't necessarily need to have your client coming in and adding a graphic or modifying the layout of a page, but you do want their feedback. This is where setting them up as a reviewer is going to be perfect, because notice from this interface, when you log into Lectora Online as a reviewer, it's a totally different interface. It's simplified for them so that all they can do is go through the content. They can preview out the content, so later in the development phase they can test for functionality, but in the storyboard phase, your clients, your subject matter experts can review page by page and provide feedback. This is going to be a tremendous way to maintain all feedback within a project. If a client leaves a note on one page, you log in as the designer, you see that note, and you make that modification. So it might be hard to see in my screenshot, But you can see there's a client note on this page, and it says, we're envisioning a photo cube on the right-hand side of this page displaying various images of the Try tab. Perhaps this can be created as a SWF with flypaper. So I'm a client, and I'm reviewing your work, your storyboard, as you're going through and designing the storyboard. So again, it's that continuous work progress. And, I like that you've listed out the objectives of the course here, but I want to see something more in here. So as the client, this is what I'm envisioning. Here's what I can provide as feedback for you. So let's go ahead and show you what that looks like to log in as a reviewer, as a client. So I'm going to go ahead and log out of my instructional designer. And I'll go ahead and log in as a client. Now this client has been set up as a reviewer. So you'll notice that when they log into the application, it goes right to this special interface. So they certainly don't need to access a dashboard or manage titles or anything of that nature. And essentially, the only projects they can choose from are those projects that have been specifically shared with them. So when I choose our storyboard from today and select OK, notice that it launches our storyboard in this special interface so that all the reviewer can do is preview the content, and they can certainly add notes where needed. So let's say on slide 4, maybe slide 5, I could add a note here that says, in addition to describing the navigation of the course, we would like to see a frequently asked question button implemented into the GUI. Okay, so I'm a client. This is something I'm reviewing your design and reviewing the storyboard, and I've got specific feedback that I want to include throughout. So you'll notice anyone as a reviewer, this is perfect for your subject matter experts. This is perfect for your clients. They can add notes, they can view a notes report, and they can even preview out what this page is going to look like published. Not so much necessary in that storyboard phase. That's more for when you get to that development process, so your clients can actually test true functionality. Again, when you work in Lectora Online, you can add as many reviewers to your organization as you want, free of charge. So again, take a look at this interface. As a client, I don't have to know anything about Lectora Online. If that's the tool that you're using for development, that you're using for storyboarding, that's perfect. This makes it very easy for me. As soon as I'm set up as a reviewer, I'll receive an email notification letting me know how to access the content. And then as you can see here from your screen, very simplified interface. They only have a couple of options available to them. Within Lectora Online, again, we're trying to change your process so that you really streamline all of your different applications into one. And some of the advantages in Lectora Online include several communication tools. So if you take a look at my screenshot, when you're working in that dashboard area and you can see that People tab, these are all the users within your organization. Anyone who's currently online as well and working within the application, you'll notice a little chat icon is active over on the right-hand side. And when you select that chat icon, you can send instant messages back and forth. So here I've got Instructional Designer 1 asking a quick question to Instructional Designer 2. They're both online. They're both working on the content. It's much easier than leaving the application, going to GChat or Skype chat or something like that. You don't have to leave the application. It's all here in one for you. Now, in addition to sending instant messages, you can also just send a quick email using this email icon here. So that will just generate an email window. You can send it quickly that way too. So again, you don't have to bounce out into your email application. You can do it all within Lectora Online. When you begin storyboarding, and the idea here within Lectora Online is that you're just rolling right from that storyboarding phase right into development phase. So all of this now, the majority of your work is going to be done within Lectora Online. So to help you with a lot of this project management, we've got several tools built into the application that are going to help you, for example, create assignments, track assignments, set up notifications per title. So when do you want to notify team members if what happens, etc. As a project manager, you can monitor your login count for your users. You can monitor access to various projects. So in other words, you can see who's doing what, how often they're doing what. And of course, we saw that you can generate different title versions. You can track your title history, revert back to a previous version if needed. And there's a lot more available within Lectora Online. So let me point out some of these project manager features, and I'll log back in. Notice here at the top we have this assignments tab, and you can, as project manager, you can create assignments for specific projects. So maybe the storyboard that we've just been working with, and I can assign it to anyone designated to that specific team. So I might say, whoops, write a note to the instructional designer too. Client wants flash animations. Do you think we need to design a separate branch to accommodate mobile access? So assuming you wanted someone to access this same course on an iPad, but the client really wants flash, how's that going to impact your design? So this is an assignment. I could continue this more detailed, tell them to design this all out in the storyboard, etc., etc. This creating assignments is a great way to delegate tasks. It's a great way to keep progress moving. You can also generate assignment reports. So you can generate these reports for individuals, for specific projects, etc. So great way to really maintain the progress that's being made on all of your content. Now this notifications tab, for all of your titles, you can determine when email notifications are sent out to your users. And I showed you that example before where an email notification was automatically sent to team members when a change was checked into the title. So anytime your title content is modified, you can send out an email notification if it's restored to a previous version. If the status of the title changes, it goes from development to testing to review, etc. Team members are changed, assignments are created, etc. So this is really your one-stop shop for managing all of those interactions. It's all done here within one application. Now over on the People tab, this is where you can determine the user's last login. When you go into your Manage Users, you can see how many times they've logged in. So you have a pretty good sense as to what users are doing, how often they're accessing your content, etc. So certainly if that's something you need to address, you can definitely address that here within the application as well. Now for today's presentation, hopefully we got you thinking a little bit about your current process and how you can modify that process slightly for use with Lectora Online, because Lectora Online can be your one-stop application. You can eliminate the need for all of those other applications, those communication tools, and you can do the majority of your designing and your development within this one application. Now, in just a moment, I will certainly launch that chat window and go through any questions you may have posted throughout the presentation. Just a couple things to mention. Like all Inspiration Wednesday sessions, this has been recorded and it will be available on our website in just a few days, probably by the end of the week. If you have a QR reader, maybe on your smartphones, you can read this code here, and that's just going to take you to the specific link of our website. So if you go to our website, trivanis.com, from our menu system, there's resources. Then you can access this area called Lectora University. That's where you're going to find all of these archived videos. So a quicker way to access that would just be to generate that link to those recorded webinars here.